All right, we are going to read we're at 42. All right, chapter 42. Selling your stuff at a yard sale is a weird experience. It's like walking around with your clothes on inside out, underwear on top of jeans, socks on top of sneakers. The insides of your apartment are spread out for everybody to see and touch. Strangers finger the lamp that used to be on your bedside table. Sweaty guys sit in your dad's favorite chair. Little stickers are on everything. $5 for your old tricycle that still has sparklers on the wheels. 50 cents for the Candyland game. It was a sunny morning. Lots of neighbors were selling stuff too. It almost felt like a party. My mom sat at a card table with a little money. My dad walked around while people bargained with him and said, "How about $2 instead of 3?" When he got too tired to walk, he sat in a folding chair and played songs on his guitar and sang. Sometimes my mom would sing harmony. My main job was to carry stuff to people's cars and to keep an eye on Robin. She was pulling someone's old wagon that had a $4 sign taped to it. In the wagon was her trash can with the blue bunnies, which my parents had promised she could keep. It wasn't so bad watching our things get sold. I told myself that every dollar we made was a good thing and that it was all just meaningless stuff. And it was nice to be with our neighbors and friends, drinking lemonade and talking and singing along with my parents. Around noon, we'd sold almost everything. I watched my mom count up the money we'd made. She looked over at my dad and shook her head. "Not even close to what we need," she said quietly. Before he could respond, a skinny man with a ponytail approached my dad. He pulled out a fancy leather wallet and asked my dad if his guitar was for sale. My dad and mom exchanged a glance. "Could be, I suppose," said my dad. "I have one that's for sale too," my mom added quickly. "It's back in the apartment." My dad held up his guitar. Sunlight darted off its smooth black body. "It's a beauty," said my dad. "Lot of history." "Dad," I exclaimed, "you can't sell your guitar." "There's always another guitar around the bend, Jax," said my dad, but he wouldn't meet my eyes. Robin ran over, and she was still towing the wagon, which nobody had bought. "You can't sell that," she cried. "It's named after Jackson." "Actually," I said, "I was named after the guitar." "It doesn't matter." Robin's eyes welled with tears. "That's a keepsake for keeping. Here, you can have my trash can for free, mister, instead." She thrust her trash can into the skinny man's hands. The man began. It's a dynamite trash can, sweetie. I really like the bunnies, but I'm more in the market for a guitar." "No guitars, no way," Robin said. My dad gave the man a helpless shrug. "Sorry, man," he said. "You heard the lady. Tell you what, though. Why don't you give me your phone number, in case we have a change of heart? I'll walk you out to your car." Together, my dad and the man headed toward a sleek black car. My dad's left foot dragged a little. Sometimes that happens with MS. They exchanged scraps of paper, talked, and nodded. The skinny man drove off, and I had a feeling that my dad's change of heart had already happened. About an hour later, our landlord came by our apartment. He had an envelope in his hand. He hugged my mom and shook my dad's hand and said he wished things could be different. I knew what the paper was because I could see the words at the top. It said "Final Eviction Notice," which meant we had to leave the apartment. My dad leaned against the wall. There wasn't anywhere to sit anymore. "Kids," he says, "looks like we're going to be taking a little drive." "To Grandma's?" asked Robin. "Not exactly," said my mom. She slammed a cupboard door shut. My dad knelt down next to Robin. He had to use his cane to keep steady. "We have to move, baby, but it'll be fun, you'll see." Robin's eyes bored into me. "You told me it would be okay, Jack," she said. "You lied." "I didn't lie. I lied." "This isn't Jackson's fault, Robin," my mom said. "Don't blame him, blame us." I didn't wait to hear any more. I ran to my room. Crenshaw was lying on my bed. I sat next to him, and when I buried my hand in his fur, he didn't object. He purred loudly. I cried a little, but not much. There wasn't any point. Once I read a book called Why Cats Purr and Other Feline Mysteries. Turns out nobody knows for sure why cats purr. It's surprising how much stuff adults don't know. 44. At 4 that afternoon, Marisol came to the door. She was wearing flip-flops and flowered pajamas. She had the Dachshunds Frank and Beans with her. Did you forget? She asked. You were supposed to meet me. I apologized and took Frank's leash. As we started down the sidewalk, I was surprised to see Crenshaw walking ahead of us. Not as surprised as I might have been a day or two ago, but still, there he was, gliding along on his hind legs, doing the occasional cartwheel or handstand. I didn't know how to tell Marisol why we were leaving. I never told her about our money problems, although she may have guessed by the way I didn't offer her anything to eat when she came over, or by the way my clothes were always a little too small. I wasn't lying exactly. It was more that I left out certain facts and focused on others. I didn't want to do it, of course. I liked facts, and so did Marisol. But sometimes facts were just too hard to share. I decided to tell Marcel something about a sick relative, about how we had to go take care of him, and how it was an all of the sudden kind of thing. But just as I started to speak, Crenshaw leaned close and whispered in my ear, "The truth, Jackson." I squeezed my eyes shut and counted to 10, slowly. 10 seconds seemed like the right amount of time for me to stop being crazy. I opened my eyes. Marisol was smiling at me. And then I told her everything. I told her about how worried I had been and how we were hungry sometimes and how afraid I was about what might come next. We walked toward the school playground. Crenshaw strode ahead and rocketed down the tube slide. When we got to the bottom, he looked at me and nodded approvingly. And then, I don't know why, I told Marisol one more fact. I told her about Crenshaw. I waited for her to tell me I was nuts. Look, Marisol knelt down to scratch Beans behind the ear. We don't know everything. I don't know why my brothers feel the need to burp the alphabet. I don't know why I like to build things. I don't know why there are no rainbow M&Ms. Why do you have to understand everything, Jackson? I like not knowing everything. It makes things more interesting. Science is about facts. Life is about facts. Crenshaw is not a fact, I shrugged. If you understand how something happens, then you can make it happen again or not happen. You want Crenshaw to go away? Yes, I said loudly. Then more softly, no, I don't know. She smiled. I wish I could see him. Black, white, hairy, I said, extremely tall. What's he doing right now? One-handed push-ups. You're kidding me. I'd love to see that. I groaned. Look, it's okay. Go ahead and call a psychiatrist. Have me committed. Marisol punched me in the shoulder, hard. Ow! I cried. Hey! You're annoying me, she said. Look, if I were worried about you, I'd tell you so. I'm your friend, but I don't think you're going crazy. You think it's normal to have a giant kitty taking bubble baths in your house? Marisol puckered her lips like she just chewed a lemon. Remember in second grade when that magician came to the school fair? He was so lame. Remember how you went behind the stage and figured out how he was making that rabbit appear, and then you told everybody? I grinned. Figured it right out. But you took the magic away, Jackson. I like thinking that little gray bunny appeared in a man's hat. I liked believing it was magic. But it wasn't. He had a hole in the hat and Marisol covered her ears. I didn't care, she cried, punching me again. And I still don't care. Ow, I said, again. Jackson, Marisol said, just enjoy the magic while you can, okay? I didn't answer. We walked in silence, following our usual route, past the little park with the fountain, past the bike path I'd ridden a zillion times back when I had a bike, past the place where I broke my arm popping a willy, past the sign that said, Welcome to Swan Lake Village. I read that swans stay together for life, Marisol said. Usually, I said, not always. You and I will be friends for life, Marisol said. She stated it like it was a nature fact, like she had just said the grass is green. I don't even know where my family's going. Doesn't matter. You can send me postcards. You can email me from the library. You'll find a way. I kicked at a stone. I'm glad I told you about Crenshaw, I said. Thank you for not laughing. I can practically see him, said Marisol. He's doing backflips on my front lawn. Actually, he's doing splits on your driveway. I said practically see him. She smiled at me. Fun fact, Jackson, you can't see sound waves, but you can hear music. That evening, sweetie, what's going on? Okay. That evening, Crenshaw and I went out to the backyard. Crenshaw liked night. He liked the way the stars took their time showing up. He liked the way the grass let go of the sun's warmth. He liked the way the crickets changed the music, but mostly he liked to eat the crickets. We lay there, me on my back, Crenshaw on his side, with Aretha nearby, gnawing at a tennis ball. Every so often she looked up, ears cocked, sniffing the air. It felt good, talking as the night took over. It almost made me forget that we were leaving the next day. It almost made me stop feeling the anger and sadness weighing me down like invisible anchors. Crenshaw trapped a cricket under his big paw. I told him crickets were considered lucky in China. Crickets are considered delicious in Thailand, he replied. His tail looped and it snaked like a lasso at a rodeo. And in Catland, I chewed on a piece of grass. It's a good way to distract yourself when you're hungry. How do you know that? Crenshaw glanced at me. I know everything you know. That's how imaginary friends operate. Do you know things I don't know? Well, I know what it's like to be an imaginary friend. Crenshaw slapped at a moth with his other front paw. The moth fluttered over his head like it was laughing at him. I hate moths, he said. They're butterfly posers. I don't know what that means. Butterfly wannabes. You know everything I know. How come you know words I don't know? It's been 3 years, Jackson. A cat can do a lot of learning in that time. I read the dictionary 4 times last month. He tried for the moth again and missed. You used to be faster, I pointed out. I used to be smaller. Crenshaw licked his paw. I've been meaning to ask you why you're so much bigger. You weren't this big when I was 7. You need a bigger friend now, said Crenshaw. Mom walked by with a box of clothing to put in the minivan. Jackson, she said, you okay? Yep. I thought I heard you talking to somebody. I cast a look at Crenshaw. Just talking to myself. You know. My mom smiled. An excellent conversational partner. Do you need any help, Mom? No, not much to pack when you get right down to it. Thanks, sweetie. Crenshaw lifted his paw and the cricket scrambled for freedom. Down went the paw. Not enough to kill the poor bug, just enough to annoy him. Do you ever feel guilty about the way cats torture things? Bugs, mice, flies, I asked. I know it's instinct and all, but still. Of course not. It's what we do. It's hunting practice, survival of the fittest. He lifted his paw, and this time the cricket made a quick getaway. Life isn't always fair, Jackson. Yeah, I said, sighing. I know. In any case, you're the one who made me a cat. I don't remember deciding that. You sort of happened. Aretha dropped her ball in front of Crenshaw. He sniffed it disdainfully. Cats do not play, Crenshaw told her. We do not frolic. We do not gamble. We nap, we kill, and we eat. Aretha wagged wildly, still hopeful. Fine. Crenshaw blew on the tennis ball. It rolled a few inches. Aretha nabbed it with her teeth and tossed it in the air. That was playful of you, I said. I plucked a new piece of grass to chew on. For someone who doesn't play. I fear you may have made me with a hint of dog thrown in. Crenshaw shuddered. Sometimes I actually want to roll in something stinky. A dead skunk maybe, or some ripe trash. Dogs do that because I know why. Because they're idiots. I also know you will never ever catch this fine feline specimen stooping so low. I sat up. The moon was thin and yellow. Anything else I put in the mix? Well, sometimes I worry I have a bit of fish in me. I rather like water. I thought back to my first grade self. I liked fish a lot when I was 7. I had a goldfish named George. Of course, said Crenshaw, you liked a lot of animals back then. Rats, manatees, cheetahs, you name it. He groaned. Bats, too. No wonder I liked to eat mosquitoes. Sorry, I said, but I couldn't help smiling. At least you worked with animals. I have a friend, a nice guy, who was made entirely who was made entirely of ice cream, hated hot weather. Wait, I let that sink in. You mean you know other imaginary friends? Of course. Cats are solitary, but we're not completely antisocial. He yawned. I've met Marisol's imaginary friend, Whoops, and your dad's. My dad had an imaginary friend, I cried. It's more common than you might think, Jackson. Crenshaw yawned again. I felt a snooze coming on. Wait, I said, before you go to sleep, just tell me about my dad's friend. Crenshaw closed his eyes. He plays the guitar, I think. My dad? No, his friend. Plays the trombone, too, if I recall correctly. He's a dog. Scrawny, not much to look at. What's his name? Starts with an F. Unusual name. Franco, Fiji. Crenshaw snapped his fingers, which is not something cats generally do. Finian, he said. It's Finian. Nice guy for a dog. Finian, I repeated. Where are you, Crenshaw, when you're not with me? You've seen a teacher's lounge, right? I've peeked. We're not allowed in. Mostly I saw a lot of coffee cups and Mr. Destefano napping on the couch. Picture a giant teacher's lounge. Lots of people waiting and snoozing and telling stories about exasperating, amazing children. That's where I stay. That's where I wait, just in case you need me. That's all you do? That's plenty. Imaginary friends are like books. We're created, we're enjoyed, we're dog-eared and then we're tucked away until we're needed again. Crenshaw rolled onto his back and closed his eyes. A good cat fact to know is that they only expose their tummies when they feel safe. His purr filled the air like a lawnmower. 47. I couldn't fall asleep that night. Sounds echoed off the walls of our empty apartment, shadows loomed and shrank, and a question kept nagging at me. Why did things have to be this way? Life isn't always fair, Crenshaw had said. His words reminded me of an interesting nature fact Miss Malone had taught us last year in 4th grade. Bats, she said, actually share food with each other. She was talking about vampire bats, the ones that slice open sleeping mammals in the dark of night. They don't actually suck blood. It's more like they lap it up, which is awesome enough. But the really amazing part, the no way part, is that when they get back to their caves, they share with the unlucky bats who haven't found anything to eat. They actually puke up warm blood into the hungry bats' mouths. If that's not the coolest nature fact ever, I don't know what is. Miss Malone said maybe bats are altruists, which means they're sharing to help the other bats, even if it's a risk. She said some scientists say yes and some say no. Scientists love to disagree about things. Miss Malone looked at me then because even though it was only like the 3rd week of school, she already had me pegged pretty well. Jackson, she said, maybe you'll be the one to settle the great are bats nice guys debate. I said probably not because I wanted to be a cheetah or manatee or dog scientist, but I would keep bats in mind as a backup plan. Miss Malone said something else about bats that day. She said she sometimes wondered if maybe bats are better human beings than human beings are. I must have finally fallen asleep because I woke from a horrible nightmare. I was panting, tears streamed down my cheeks, and the moon was wrapped in fog. Crenshaw placed a paw on my shoulder. Gently, he butted his head against mine. Bad dream? He asked. I don't remember it, really. I was in a cave, I think, and I was yelling for someone to help me, and nobody would listen. I'll help, said Crenshaw. I'll listen. I turned to him. Looking in his eyes, I could see myself reflected. I can't go with my family, I said. My own words surprised me. I can't live in the minivan again. I don't want to have to worry anymore. I'm tired, Crenshaw. I know, he said. I know. I blinked. The answer was obvious. I had to run away. It wasn't going to be much of a trip. I'd just have to ask Marisol if I could stay with her. She had plenty of room. I could help around the house. I leaped up. Crenshaw watched me, but he didn't say a word. It wasn't like I had a lot to pack. I grabbed my pillow, my keepsakes bag, some clothes, and my toothbrush. The way I figured it, I'd go over to Marisol's house before my family woke up. Marisol was an early riser. She wouldn't mind. It was hard to find a piece of paper and a pencil, but I managed. Aretha and Crenshaw watched me chew on the pencil as I tried to decide what to write. What should I say? I asked, as much to myself as to Crenshaw. Tell the truth to the person who matters most, said Crenshaw. You. And so I did. Dear Mom and Dad, here are the facts. I'm tired of not knowing what is going to happen. I am old enough to understand things. I hate living this way. I'm going to live with Marisol for a while. When you figure things out, maybe I can join you. Love, Jackson. P.S. Aretha likes to sleep on a pillow, so don't forget. P.P.S. Robin needs to know what's happening too. In an envelope, I put $10 I'd made from walking the Gushers Hounds. On the outside, I wrote, to the cover to cover two unfortunate incidents where I used very bad judgment, please give $7 to Safeway for 2 jars of Gerber chicken and rice, and $3 to Pet Food Express for a cookie shaped like a cat. Tap, 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 tap. It was Robin knocking at my door. Jax? I dropped my pencil. Go to sleep, Robin. It's late. It's scary in my room. It'll be morning soon, I said. I'll just wait here by your door, Robin said. I have Spot to keep me company. I looked at Crenshaw. He held up his paws. Don't ask me. Human children are infinitely more complicated than kittens. Please go back to bed, Robin, I pleaded. I don't mind waiting, she said. I stood. I went to the door. I hesitated. I opened it. Robin came in. She had Spot, her pillow, and her Lyle book. I looked at her. I looked at my note. I crumbled it up and tossed it aside. We'd read Lyle together until we both fell asleep. When I awoke, Robin, Aretha, and Crenshaw were spread out on my mattress. Robin and Aretha were both drooling a little. Sitting on the floor across from us were my mom and dad. They had on their bathrobes. My dad had my crumpled note flattened out on in his lap. Good morning, my mom whispered. I didn't answer her. I didn't even look at her. Fact, my dad said softly. Parents make mistakes. A lot, my mom added. Fact, said my dad. Parents try not to burden their kids with grown up problems, but sometimes that's hard to do. Robin stirred, but she didn't wake. Well, it's hard being a kid too, I said. I was glad I sounded so angry. It's not hard not to know what's happening. I know, said my dad. I don't want to go back to that time, I said, my voice getting louder with each word. I hated you for putting us through it. It wasn't fair. Other kids don't have to sleep in their car. Other kids aren't hungry. I knew that wasn't true. I knew that lots of other kids had it worse than I did, but I didn't care. Why can't you just be like other parents? I demanded. I was crying hard. I gasped for breath. Why does it have to be this way? My mom came over and tried to hug me. I wouldn't let her. We're so sorry, sweetheart, she whispered. My dad sniffed. He cleared his throat. I looked over at Crenshaw. He was awake, watching me carefully. I took a deep, shuddery breath. I know you're sorry, but that doesn't change the way things are. You're right, said my dad. No one talked for a few minutes. The only sound was Crenshaw purring gently, and only I could hear him. Slowly, very slowly, I began to feel my anger changing into something softer. It's okay, I finally said. It's really okay. I just want to tell I just want you to tell me the truth from now on. That's all. That's fair, my dad said. More than fair, my mom agreed. I'm getting older, I said. I can handle it. Well, then here's another fact, said my dad. Last night I called the guy who wanted to buy our guitars. He told me his brother owns that music store down by the mall and he needs an assistant manager. His brother also has a garage apartment behind the store that won't be occupied for a month. It'd give us a roof over our heads for a little while anyway. Maybe some more work. That's good, right? I asked. It's good, my dad said, but it's not a certainty. Here's the thing, Jackson. Life is messy. It's complicated. It would be nice if life were always like this. He drew an imaginary line that kept going up and up. But life is actually a more is but life is actually a lot more like this. He made a jiggly line that went up and down like a mountain range. You just have to keep trying. What's that expression? Asked my mom. Fall down 7 times, get up 8. More fortune cookie wisdom, said my dad, but it's true. My mom patted my back. Starting today, we'll be as honest with you as we can. Is that what you want? I looked over at Crenshaw and he nodded. Yes, I said, that's what I want. All right then, said my dad, it's a deal. Fact, said my mom. I'd really like some breakfast. Let's go see what we can do about that. The music store looked pretty run down. We waited in the car while my parents went to talk to the owner. It took a long time, and Robin and I played cereal ball with her tea ball cap and some sugarless bubble gum. You remember those purple jelly beans? Robin asked. The magic ones? Robin nodded. They were maybe not so magic. I sat up straighter. What do you mean? They were from Kylie's birthday party. Robin pulled on her ponytail. I just wanted you to think that they were magic, but there's no such thing. Of course. I don't know, I said. Could be magic happens sometimes. Really? Robin asked. Really, I said. When my parents came out of the store, they were smiling. They shook a man's hand, and he gave my dad a set of keys. Got the job, my dad said. It's part time, but with everything else, it should help. And we can stay in that apartment for a month anyway. Hopefully, by then, we'll have come up with yet another plan. We really want to keep you and Robin at the same school. We're going to do our best, but there are no guarantees. I know, I said, and even though it didn't solve all our problems, I felt a little better. The garage apartment was tiny, with only one bedroom. There was no TV, and the carpeting was weary beige. Still, it had a roof and a door and a family who needed it. The article I read about imaginary friends said they often appear during times of stress. It said that as kids mature, they tend to outgrow their pretend world. But Crenshaw told me something else. He said imaginary friends never leave. He said they were on call, just waiting in case they were needed. I said that sounded like a lot of waiting around, and he said he didn't mind. It was his job. The first night in our new apartment, I slept on a chair in the living room. I woke up in the middle of the night. Everyone else was sleeping soundly. As I headed to the bathroom to get a drink, I was surprised when I heard the water running. I knocked, and when no one answered, I opened the door a crack. Bubbles floated and danced, steam billowed, and through the mist I could make out Crenshaw in the shower, fashioning a bubble beard. Do you have any purple jelly beans? He asked. Before I could answer, I felt my dad's hand on my shoulder. Jackson, you okay? I turned and hugged him hard. I love you, I said, and that's a fact. I love you too, he whispered. I smiled, recalling the question I'd been meaning to ask. Dad, I said, have you ever known anyone by the name of Finian? Did you say Finian? He asked, with a faraway look in his eyes. I closed the bathroom door, and as I did, I caught another glimpse of Crenshaw. He was standing on his head, his tail covered with bubbles. I squeezed my eyes shut and counted to 10, slowly. 10 seconds seemed like the right amount of time for me to be sure he wasn't going to leave. When I opened my eyes, Crenshaw was still there. There had to be a logical explanation. There's always a logical explanation. Meantime, I was going to enjoy the magic while I could. The end. All right.
But we didn't even get to hear about the imaginary friend.
The part is like when you don't really know the full ending. Like it doesn't show you the full ending.